11:59 a.m. It's time to wake up. There's so much I have to do. I've been putting off this huge task of going through all of my emails and organizing all of the Google spreadsheets for work, but today's finally going to be the day that I do it. But first, I need to check my phone for all of my notifications because it could be something super important, like Jack Black messaging me about my friend request. He's the spitting image of Minecraft Steve. Amber Alert, get out of here! Well, little Timmy is already in the van and I don't want to get in my car, so skill issue. What's really important is the new Rainbow Six test servers just went live. I can't wait to be in a wheelchair. Kind of bummed out though that the twin robots have legs. Ubisoft could have given them wheels as well. Wheels? That reminds me, Fast and Furious 7 has been put on Netflix today. How can they get even faster and even more furious every single movie? Man, I love family. The update is probably super buggy anyways, it can wait. This movie kind of starts off slow. Maybe I could wait for it to get to the good part with the new Brawl Stars SpongeBob update. Gotta keep the grind up for that SpongeBob skin. And I can play Brawl Stars while watching the movie. Perfect! I'll be way more productive this way and get back to work sooner. Google spreadsheets and numbers. That's what I'm doing with my life. The dance school would have never worked. Well, now I'm depressed. I gotta cheer myself up with a quick goon sesh. To the nut room we go. Oh man, I almost forgot my Reddit daily upvote streak. I haven't missed a login in 89 days in a row. What's that? There are 5 more wars now and the economy has adapted a new toaster in the bathtub strategy? That's not very cool. I gotta take my mind off of things. Maybe I'll chat with some of my Discord friends. They will cheer me up. Oh, my friends are all working. And I'm supposed to be working too. As a clerk. That's what I do. My job is incredibly important, so I better do it. Definitely more important than dancing. But you can't work on an empty stomach. Thankfully, I got my Takis covered fried chicken ready for the air fryer. While that's cooking, I could watch some TikToks and oh shoot, I forgot to water the plants. I've been forgetting to water them for 5 weeks in a row. Even succulents need water. Okay, after the chicken, I'll finish the movie and go back to the test servers and then go do the work. Wait, it's 9 p.m. already? But how? I have to wake up early tomorrow. I gotta go to bed. I have to brush my teeth. I have to. What have I been doing all day? What is this on my face? I wanted to do so much more in life. So I've just been playing video games, Netflix. I don't even remember. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to look, I can still dance. That wasn't that bad. If I just go back to dance school again and take the dance lessons, I can still fulfill my dream. So I'm wasting my entire life away. I have to do something. And what is this on my face? Get it off! Get it off me! Get it off! Huh? Notification. This hour. Well, it must be important. I have to check it. If you live a life of distractions, you lose yourself along the way. If you keep running away from the things that define you and the things that make you happy, don't ask yourself why you live in misery. In an endless cycle of urge fulfillment, have you ever actually felt fulfilled? What have you accomplished and what do you want to do with your life? We distract ourselves to the point of absolute obscurity. Many of us have probably had this moment in one way or another, the sudden burst of midnight motivation, those pesky thoughts at 3 a.m. that not only remind you of your most embarrassing middle school experiences, but also what you could do if only you were motivated. If only you didn't live this lazy, unproductive lifestyle. If only you actually took the risk and followed your heart. Those brief moments of lucidity in a sea of endless brain rot, like a lighthouse, piercing through the endless fog that is your life. You want to follow it, but alas, you fall back into your old habits, telling yourself that you'll do it tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. We have so many options to distract ourselves from reality, we have practically built a whole Plato's cave for ourselves in the comforts of our own home. These distractions have reached a point where I will distract myself from my distractions because the original ones are too tiring. For example, sometimes I want to play Deep Rock Galactic on my PC, but I'm too lazy to stand up and start the PC, so I distract myself with some videos, but then I get bored and whip out Minecraft on my phone to listen to the videos while playing the game. It's distractception over here, and I personally have become so sick of them all. We can leave anytime we like, but all of the media conglomerates and tech giants want to keep you here. Your attention is worth money. You get hundreds of thousands of ads shoved in your face, and even if you won't buy a single thing because of those ads, you're generating income for the media companies that provide the ad space. And as we know, the longer we spend time on something, the more likely we are to spend money on it, since we've already invested our time into it. And because your attention is worth that bread, a lot of faceless businessmen have come up with ways to catch your attention, kind of like a human rat trap. It's no wonder you get so easily distracted by everything, since behind every single notification sound, level up noise, and web design is $1 billion worth of research, manual labor, and the most talented designers money can buy. Everything has been maximized to catch your attention, therefore everything is extremely distracting now, and it's really difficult to do any task if you're getting sidetracked harder than your average Red Dead Redemption 2 playthrough. Ignorance is bliss until reality hits you like a truck and leaves you paralyzed. Now you are stuck in this paralyzed state, not knowing what to do because you kept putting your work off. It gets really difficult to fight through all of your distractions and addictions. This is the spiritual successor to my addiction video. I wanted to get to the root cause of the issue because a lot of our unhealthy activities and addictions can be traced back to, as I'd like to call it, the distraction economy. As the name states, there is a whole economy around getting your attention, therefore you being distracted all the time is just a byproduct of exploitative business practices and the systems we have in place. I know that you can always make the argument that it's the people at fault for getting led astray so easily, but it's like saying it's the people's fault for getting lung cancer. All we do is give free tobacco to kids. Nobody taught us how to focus on your own life goals. It's always assumed that all people have them by default, and that if they really wanted to achieve them, they could. Young people especially need to figure out their lives first, and if they spent their entire lives on various screens and virtual activities, that's all they know, and therefore that's all they want. If you ask people what do you want from life, or what do you wish for, most people will reply with either I don't know or a lot of money and sometimes a good amount of fame just for the heck of it. Okay, you get rich, you've achieved that goal. What are you going to buy with the money? Expensive cars? To go where? So that you don't have to go to work anymore? That's great, but what are you gonna do with your time if you don't need to work anymore? I don't know, look at memes, eat good food, and play some video games? Well, we can do all of these things right now, and this is where one of the fundamental problems of the distraction economy lies. People distract themselves from their life because they don't even know what they want from life. They only know how to live through their vices, and if your grand goals in life is to reach global elite or become the world's biggest gooner, your brain is going to start working on that immediately. It also doesn't help that our world is really unstable right now. With the upcoming elections in the US and ever so escalating tensions and situations around the world, we feel the need to distract ourselves from all of this negative information coming our way, and I actually think that's a decent response. The reaction to distract ourselves, to not think about harmful information is pretty natural, and it's very effective. You can't do anything about the world going through historically significant times, so you might as well hop on a Discord call and have a let's watch together or a gaming session with your friends. Anything is better than the BS they feed us on the news. Distraction becomes a problem when it's not voluntary anymore. You know you need to do important things for your life or just pursue your interests, but you can't because you always end up in a doom-scrolling loop or 5-hour-long daydream. Why does this happen? Well, I've talked about this in my previous video, but supernormal stimuli have been a huge contributor in our overconsumption. From internet corn down to fast food, we are experiencing an unprecedented level of stimulation that has become harmful towards ourselves. We were not meant to be able to see the best parts of everybody's lives on social media, live leak videos at 9 years old, or what is going on around the world with 24/7 news coverage. There are so many things that are 1,000 times more pleasant than work, but work is how you progress your main story quest. If you want to be a dancer, for example, like in the intro, you will have to put in the work through practice and lessons. Just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you'll instantly be good at it. Talent isn't a lucky skill you get assigned to at birth, and even if natural talent exists, it will only take you so far. In most cases, talent is just pursued interest. You don't need to be talented right away. We suck at most things until we don't because of our sheer willpower to become better. But a life of constant distraction is easier, so guess what people choose? It takes a lot of effort to be able to end up in a position where you can pursue your passion. Just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you will magically get up one day and start pursuing it instead of being stuck in your vicious cycle. You have to get out of it before you can even properly begin to live your life according to your choices instead of your vices. Speaking of the vices or the sources of the distractions, let's talk about them. We're always one notification sound away from entering a 7-hour doom-scrolling session. And because you can basically unlock your phone instantly with your face, it can super easily distract you from anything that you're doing. I think you should only have notifications on for your family members. Your Clash of Clans base can wait. Surprise, surprise, most people don't enjoy wasting their time on meaningless little side quests. The big problem here is that video games, for example, were designed to be extremely rewarding. You can even play a game that makes you extremely angry most of the time, like any competitive 5v5 shooter or MOBA, but yet you still come back, sometimes daily, like it's your job. Because video games have figured out the perfect formula of giving you a false sense of accomplishment through inflated difficulty. When you finally beat a super hard boss like Melania, you feel proud of yourself, and there's a whole cutscene that shows her demise and your victory. Now when you file your taxes, is there a victory screen with a cool animation of your tax forms being sent to hell? No, there's nothing. In fact, you're losing your own money by paying taxes because you know the government is gonna give it all away to the funny desert country. Oftentimes we have to do jobs or tasks that have absolutely no reward besides the feeling of relief of getting them done, or delayed gratification like a paycheck at the end of the month. To be honest, I have an actual job and it does not feel satisfying whatsoever to get that money. The work was far more annoying than being able to buy the 500 € Guts figurine. So it's extremely appealing to play video games and reap their instant gratification after a tough victory instead of doing terrible real-life activities. Gamifying has been a term thrown around a lot recently, and it's already been used for evil. For example, Robinhood gamifying investments so that people put more money into it, or social media sites like Reddit adding achievements to your profile so you stay on Reddit longer. And while I could tell you to gamify your life, I don't really think it's a good solution. Because after one point, even games can start to get boring, and there's only so many ways to make washing clothes and filing taxes fun. Why do you think there's so many goofy video essays about games not being fun anymore? People fall into the trap of watching short-form videos instead of playing games because it takes too much brain power. If you keep upping the dosage of your stimulation, eventually nothing will be enough to satisfy you. Instead, we have to get used to boredom and being comfortable with being uncomfortable, but more on that later. Because I want to address another huge source of distraction first that often comes up in my videos. The millions of shows we are able to watch at any time. They enable us to get completely lost in their catalog. We live our lives vicariously through the characters on screen, and the studio executives noticed and started creating things like slice of life shows so that you can feel as if you're a part of a friend group. We can also get really attached to the characters in our favorite TV shows and anime, and we start to develop this parasocial relationship with a person that doesn't even exist. People identify themselves with the main characters of the shows, and they will often have their favorite character as their profile picture, or they will have a quote from the show in their bio. Of course you're allowed to enjoy them thoroughly, but I feel like people genuinely get lost in them and start building a real-life personality from these characters. The problem with that is you never find out who you really are and what you really like. You just think you know. It goes even deeper than entertainment. You assume this is what you want in life based on people's expectations or your own interpretations of how a real man or woman should act. You need to act cool and mysterious to be interesting. You need to dislike anime because it's cringe. You can't be sincere, that's cringe. You need to be ironic, sarcastic, and snarky to be funny. You need to do this, you need to do that. Quiet. What we need right now is silence. In the endless noise emitting from the internet, silence is worth its weight in gold. Be your true self even if it's cringe. And I'm not talking about who you think you are. It's so easy to lose yourself and your identity nowadays, or even what you are. I'm talking about the person, the individual that gives commands to your brain. Yes, you. You need to live your truth. You'll be much happier because of it. Happiness has nothing to do with our measurements of success. It is unique to the individual. We definitely need money to survive, and we need to work, but there is a way for you to break free from your constant distraction cycle and achieve true, personal happiness. It does not come from outside sources. It comes from within. So you need to find yourself, to find your inside source of happiness. It's never easy though, because it's not just the enticing dopaminergic rewards that hold us back and keep us distracted. There is also the second most powerful emotion that is holding us back from finding ourselves. That is fear. Some people are scared of their own thoughts, and being alone with your thoughts is a truly terrifying concept to them. But if you're not at peace with yourself, that means war. And you will continue to be your own biggest enemy. Eventually you will have to confront these thoughts one way or another, and get to the bottom of them. Why are they so upsetting that you would rather proverbially shut your brain off to protect yourself? You can lose yourself by always avoiding the things that make you, you. If we think and therefore we are, who are you if you don't think? If you're so afraid of your own thoughts that you would rather drown in a fog of diversion than be alone with them, what have they done to you? Of course, if it's trauma, it's perfectly fine to get help, but just running away from them sadly isn't going to solve them. I thought of the song Car Radio by 21 Pilots when writing about this. I ponder of something terrifying, cause this time there's no sound to hide behind, to find over the course of our human existence one thing consists of consistence. And it's that we're all battling fear. Oh dear, I don't know if we know why we're here. Oh my, too deep, please stop thinking. I liked it better when my car had sound. Fear is a powerful emotion, second only to love, and of course it's hard to stop worrying and stop being afraid of your own thoughts. You don't even need to be depressed to have these thoughts, they occur naturally, and what helped me with them was to reach the end of thought. In meditation, this is something to strive for, to be completely free of thoughts, and you can achieve this by letting them run through you like a waterfall. No judgment, no overthinking, just let them pass through. Eventually, you'll reach the core thoughts that have been causing your personal issues, and once you've identified them, you can deal with them properly. For me, it took me 8 months or something to reach the end of thought. It's basically impossible to reach it for me within a day, because I'm constantly thinking, but through dedication and acceptance, I reached them, and it allowed me to address some of my problems. I also think that it's very healthy for you to try out new thought patterns, and what I mean by that is that some people get trapped in circular thinking, like I'm such a loser, nobody wants to be with me because I'm a loser, that makes me a total loser, etc. This type of circular thinking is just one of the thought traps a lot of people seem to fall into. They may seem inescapable, especially when it comes to difficult questions like your place in life and what you want to do with it, but they're not, thankfully. So instead of the circular thinking, you should try asking yourself questions so you'll get answers like, nobody wants to hang out with me because I don't ask anybody, I just assume they do. Are you afraid to be with yourself because you fear that you don't like the person you have become? Do you view yourself as cringe? Or have you never learned how to love yourself and express that love? Knowing how to ask yourself the right questions is an incredibly important skill that I think everyone should know. And introspection actually leads to a happier life instead of a sadder one in most cases. Unless you're like a BoJack Horseman type of character, and you realize you're not really that good of a person. But even in BoJack Horseman, he becomes a better horse, I guess. Because if you don't even know your flaws and personal issues, you can't work on them. So even if it's extremely uncomfortable, and you'd rather just go on Insta Reels for a couple of hours, so don't lose yourself like some shady and find out who you really are. Journaling has helped me with that as well. Deep introspection and analysis of your own thoughts when you read them back to yourself helps immensely in overcoming them. Journaling also forces you to put these abstract fears into words, and suddenly, these problems bouncing around in your brain don't seem so impossible to solve anymore. Knowing yourself inside out is the first step to quitting all of your bad habits and addictions. I can already see all of the comments that say, "Hey dingbat, I have no motivation to do any of this. I'm doomed already. There's no hope for me." No. I have to debunk a huge myth that's been holding back millions of people from doing cool things in life. That is, you don't need motivation to get your project started. The most dedicated artists and workers are completely unmotivated most of the time they're pursuing their tasks or passions. Think about it, do virtuoso pianists look forward to practicing 8 hours a day with a metronome? No, quite the opposite. Motivation makes it easier to start a task, but ultimately it's completely unnecessary. It is discipline and habits that dictate your life. If you want to start practicing piano, just promise yourself to play a little bit for a short amount of time every day. Eventually, you get a habit of playing the piano and you will actually get the urge to start practicing naturally. You have to make a habit out of it. Motivation is spontaneous and unreliable. Big life changes come from small consistent actions over time. That goes for anything. Even if you're just engaging with the activity like freestyling on the piano, it contributes to our habit circuitry. 5 minutes of practice can easily turn to 10. The start is the hardest part. And there is actually another huge myth that is holding us back, and it also starts with M, funnily enough. And that is multitasking. I think it's a huge contributor to our impulse to distract ourselves, and because of all of these distractions, our lives have become very scattered. Oftentimes, we like to multitask, like listening to a true crime podcast while cooking, or using your phone while watching a movie, or eating food while watching a video. The eating food while watching something has become so widespread, it's something special if you don't do it. We like to maximize our days as much as we can because God forbid we even get bored for a single second. We need constant stimulation to not only keep the bad thoughts away, but also to save time. Time has started passing extremely quickly lately, so you must save as much of it as possible by multitasking. There's only one problem. Multitasking is a myth. It doesn't exist. It's like the chupacabra of mental abilities. What you thought was multitasking was actually task switching. Our brain quickly switches between the tasks given to it, and it gives us the illusion that we can focus on multiple things at once. But neurologically, our brain can only focus on one thing at a time. So okay, it's got a different name. What's the big deal? There are many downsides to task switching as opposed to focusing on one task at a time. For example, a significant loss of productivity. It can make you less creative because you can't expand on the ideas in your head. They don't even have the time to properly form if you task switch too quickly. I'm sure you know the feeling of wanting to say 1,000 things, but it all just ends up coming out as manic gibberish. That's kind of what happens when we overload our brain with tasks. Task switching worsens our overall ability to perform a task, kind of like jack of all trades, master of none. But instead it's jack of a couple of trades, bad at them all. No wonder you feel overwhelmed when getting thrown 100 things at once. If you try to tackle them all simultaneously, you will just end up failing at them all. So of course, this all leads to the inevitable conclusion of only doing one thing at a time. It's kind of like saying when you work, work hard, when you play, play hard. We have to take that to heart. As we know now, our brain is only able to focus on one thing at a time anyway, so you might as well embrace that fact and try to earnestly only focus on one thing at a time to improve your productivity. It's also better for the psyche because you can see your progress much clearer by completing one task at a time. And the completed tasks also act as checkpoints. If you try to work on all of your Among Us tasks at the same time and something unpredictable happens, your progress stops on all of them, and by the end of the day, you haven't even finished one, although you worked so hard on them. This even includes entertainment. I see many young people making the mistake of guilt-tripping themselves for having fun and relaxing. They feel like they should be more productive. They can't rest because every second they don't work, someone is getting ahead in life. Properly resting is productive. And life is not a race. It's a crazy ocean of experiences that is completely unique to you. When we procrastinate a task, we don't think to ourselves, hey, let's make this the best possible day I could have. No, it's, I'm just gonna go on Insta Reels to get my mind off of things. Oh god, I'm such a terrible person for not working. So you feel awful if you procrastinate. A great bit of advice I heard is that if you know you're going to throw this day away, you might as well have fun with it, and do activities that you actually want to do. Be fully focused on Team Fortress 2. Be fully immersed in Breaking Bad. Buy a $500 car off of eBay and drive around with it like it's GTA. Legally, this is a joke. If you actually have an intentionally fun and relaxing day, you're more likely to be prepared to work in the future, because you actually relax during this time. Procrastinating isn't relaxing. It's actually quite stressful. You just have to come to terms with the fact that you'll have to take a day off occasionally. But that day off with proper relaxation is worth like a month of anxious procrastination. If you don't even know how to relax anymore besides indulging in your vices, you can try out some chill activities like crocheting, learning an instrument, and drawing. Whatever suits you. Some people find Hearts of Iron 4 relaxing. To each their own. So don't do your tasks by switching between them every so often before all of them are done eventually. The closest thing we have to multitasking is going on autopilot mode, and it's a really useful skill to have until you start living your life on autopilot mode. I don't know if you've noticed, but you're only actively conscious and present with your mind for around half of the day. The rest is your brain just doing what it's used to. We can drive without thinking about it, we can walk, and we can even gamble without thinking about it, if you're dedicated enough to gambling. Those windows of lucidity is where you can do the fun stuff and make changes with your life, but if your whole routine revolves around avoidance of any uncomfortable activity, you get stuck in the Skinner box pleasure trap. Many people can't cope with the pain that comes from abandoning your dreams, so they distract themselves even more to get away from the pain, but then it gets worse since you don't do anything about it, and it becomes a vicious cycle. They have jobs that they hate and now they need to distract themselves from their current situation to cope. They kind of force themselves to relax. But we can't do that anymore because of our overstimulation. We are super overstimulated to the brim and many people have suggested a dopamine detox as a solution, but I think the answer is actually much simpler than that. Boredom. The emotion that might have kickstarted some empires. Being bored is completely normal and natural, and I think we should let ourselves be bored. Being bored is the kickstarter for our brain to say, hey, let's do something awesome, and not, hey, let's subdue ourselves to total numbness. You can't be bored if you don't have any emotions at all. Your dopamine system is great if it's working as intended, so you don't need to starve yourself of dopamine. I actually think this will lead to inevitable failure because switching from a life of supernormal stimulation to nothing is hell for the brain. You need to redirect your sources of dopamine to useful activities and your passions. It's even a great solution against addiction as well. In a study on rats, it was found that isolated rats with few toys would overdose on the nose candy, while rats in an enriching environment surrounded by other rats often did not feel the need to consume the drug. Loneliness is probably a huge part in our flawed lifestyles. I've seen some people cancel plans with their friends in favor of bed rotting. If you improve your social life, it will improve your life overall, and you will simply have less time to waste by using it to create memorable experiences. Your friends can also keep you in check and annoy you if you're slacking off on your work or your goals. So let's take some action. There is one more issue though. One more elephant in the room. We've discussed video games, streaming services, and corn as a form of escapism and a source of distraction. But those were all nothing compared to the ultimate end boss of distraction. Daydreaming. Specifically, a phenomena called maladaptive daydreaming. This phenomena has only been acknowledged as a serious mental condition pretty recently, and it's not even an official diagnosis yet in psychology. It is a proposed diagnosis of a disordered form of dissociative absorption. While it might not be a widely recognized diagnosis in the medical world, I think in the real world it's become a serious problem, because how does one stop maladaptive daydreaming? You can't take away a person's head without also taking away their life, so do you give them medication that makes them extremely dull and uncreative? This is personally one of my biggest problems in terms of distractions, because you only need your brain to partake in it, and you just let your mind wander and boom, now I'm fighting some grunts alongside Goku. Maladaptive daydreaming can keep you from properly meditating, keeping your focus, and working. Because why wouldn't you go into an alternate reality where everything is so much cooler, taxes don't exist, a huge landscape to explore, and you can punch people in the face if you don't like them? I know I'm just describing the Wild West, but a man can have a dream, alright? Have some goddamn faith! This constant daydreaming can also lead to delusions of grandeur, where you start to live your life inside of the fantasy world you have created instead of the real one. I'm not even gonna lie, I used to daydream about making YouTube videos all the time, but only this year did I actually take it seriously and started posting videos for real. Depending on how good your imagination is, the more difficult it will be for you to quit your daydreaming habits. I use music to silence my impulsive thoughts, which lead me to daydream, but sometimes it makes it worse. But how can you stop maladaptive daydreaming for real? What worked for me is setting reality anchors in your real life that remind you need to get back to the task at hand. Like a clock that emits a noticeable ticking sound to remind you that time is passing you by while you sit there dilly-dallying. Or I put on the 10 hours of silence, occasionally getting broken up by Walter to keep myself in this reality. The Apple alarm sound was too effective at getting me to stop daydreaming, and it raised my heartbeat consistently. But if you really want to stop getting lost in your daydreams, set up alarms. Another method I know of is to focus solely on your work or the thing that you're doing. Because the brain can focus on only one thing at a time, if you keep that slot occupied, your brain won't get the chance to sneak in a daydream. Your concentration will ultimately triumph over your brain's feeble attempt to distract you. What also helps me stay focused is to make my environment intentionally stressful. If you don't feel safe to let your mind wander, you can focus on the tasks you need to finish instead. You literally don't allow yourself to be in a position to daydream in the first place. I really wish I could give you better advice, but guys, there's almost no research on this. I looked at what Harvard Medical School has to say about daydreaming, and it just boils down to blanket treatments like CBT, various medications, and just general things that improve your health. Of course you should do them if you haven't, but there is no concrete answer. I'm struggling with it to this day, but putting myself in a position where it's too uncomfortable to daydream has helped me the most. So working under pressure could also help you depending on what type of person you are. We live substitutes of our lives. We substitute it with super exciting things because our regular life simply isn't as exciting and boredom is a crime. Living a life that is just one distraction from another so you can never be in pain is really convenient, but it actually makes your life so much harder. No matter how much we try to avoid it, hardship will always come at the most inconvenient time in our lives. As if there ever was such a thing as a convenient hardship. And people who don't know how to deal with that sort of pain and difficulty absolutely crumble under it, and it is extremely hard for them to find a solution while keeping your mind healthy. People who are used to difficult times in their life and the ones who face reality have it way easier, because they actually know what to do in that situation, and it doesn't damage their mental health and sanity because they're resistant to it. Remember the story of the Roman emperor who drank a little bit of poison every day until he wasn't able to bite the dust when he wanted to? We need to do that to our brains. Our psyche does not have to be that fragile that after every single tiny mistake or inconvenience we need the whole rest of the day to recover from it. I think our complete avoidance of any pain and failure has led us to the rise of mental conditions like anxiety disorders and depressive episodes. We are afraid of failures and judgments, and that should not come as a surprise, and I think almost everyone knows this, but actually thinking about what you did wrong can be really painful. Everyone hates their own mistakes and would never acknowledge them unless absolutely necessary, but we need to know if we were the reason we failed or if it was because of our circumstances. Our lack of personal analysis that has been replaced with distraction keeps us making the same mistakes again and again. For some people, distraction is a coping mechanism that has been taught to them, either by their parents or by society. A better coping mechanism I have for you is meditation. Specifically a meditation for focus that is sitting down, closing your eyes and focusing on your breathing. Your mind will tell you all sorts of things to convince you why you shouldn't be productive today, but it's all BS if you actually think about what your mind is telling you. You have to sit with yourself and notice your thoughts. Don't judge if they're true or not, just listen to them and you'll quickly realize that some of them are really silly and not really an issue, while others have a root cause to them that needs to be addressed. If you get bored, stay bored until you want to do something other than mindless consumption. Are the video games going to disappear once I stop playing them every day? No, they will still be here no matter what, even if you choose to make time for yourself. There's a lot of fear of missing out nowadays, but you have to remember this is your life. There are a trillion things you're missing out on daily, and some of them are good, while others are terrible. You could have missed out going for a joyride in your car and crashing it, leaving you paralyzed today. You should decide which activities you should be a part of, and remember, life is too short to experience literally everything it has to offer. We have to live it like a choose-your-own-adventure story to be happy. There is no 100% to life, there's only living the best life that you can. Be aware of who you are and your own actions. If your actions do not coincide with your goals, self-reflect on them to find the issue. Work on it until it has been solved and bam, you're productive again. You need to actively acknowledge that you're doom scrolling right now, for example. So even if you partake in a distraction, keep telling yourself what you're doing and remember how you feel, so that it's harder for your brain to trick you into having a dopamine feast. Accept who you are and that some distractions are good. You just need to be able to tell when you shouldn't be distracted anymore. So remember, use everything in measures except measures themselves, and balance your consumption to work ratio. Watching a movie or playing video games isn't bad in itself, it's overdoing it and using it as a way to escape your deeper problems that make it problematic. That was a lot. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a Discord channel if you want to chat with me. Like and subscribe, watch more of my videos if you want to, or go outside and live life. Focus instead of distractions, and thank you for watching.